This video is designed to provide you with a walkthrough of the data template that serves as part of the Leader College of Distinction, and Leah Meyer Austin Award applications. Please note that although I'll be walking through the template labeled Leader College of Distinction, an identical data template exists for the Leah Meyer Austin Award. The only difference is the labeling at the top. In other words, if you see one template, you've seen both templates. Likewise, if you're looking at a data template that is simply titled Leader College, you will notice it has mostly similar but slightly different requirements for the number of metrics in which you have shown improvement or closed gaps, and there's no tab for transfer with earned baccalaureate. References to Group A and Group B metrics are also not applicable. I'll highlight these small differences as we explore further. When you download the template and open it for the first time, you'll be viewing the tab labeled Intro Start Here. As the name suggests, I urge you to indeed start here. It'll take you a few minutes to go through the contents of this tab, but doing so will set you up for success later. On this tab, you'll find some initial reminders about how many metrics on which we'll be evaluating your institution, as well as examples of what constitutes a gap closing for student characteristic groups. As you scroll down, you'll start to see green boxes appear. One key to understanding how this spreadsheet functions is to know that if you see a green box, fill it out. Some are open response boxes and others are drop-down lists, but that's your cue to provide information. All other cells are locked so that you can't accidentally delete a formula. First, you'll be asked to provide identification for your institution. Yes, please do us a favor and write your name in the box. We know you're not really called Sample Community College, but I'll keep it here for the time being. You'll then be asked to decide whether you want to fill out metrics based on a strict first time ever in college cohort, a slightly more lenient first time ever in college cohort, or one that reflects any student new to your institution in the given year, regardless of prior post-secondary participation. Remember, you're only being compared across years to yourself, so ATD has no strong preference which one you select. However, you may want to chat with your ATD coach for a little more direction. I will say that the main difference between the two different FTEIC cohorts is whether they include students who earn credit prior to high school graduation. We're talking about dual enrollment, advanced placement, or international baccalaureate. If you don't include these students, you have a very pure cohort that is all starting with 0 credits, but at the same time, you're excluding otherwise new to college students who just may have gotten a few prerequisites out of the way in high school. As you can surmise, there's arguments for and against any of these cohorts, but the choice is ultimately yours. So here, I'm going to go to this box and select FTEIC only with prior high school credit. Moving further down, you'll see selections for race and ethnicity. We would like for you to select your 2 largest groups in terms of population. Your third group doesn't necessarily have to be your 3rd largest group, but certainly a group of interest, as long as the group sizes per cohort tend to be at least 25 students or more. Now, if you're at a very small college and therefore may not have a third group of at least 25, you can still choose one, but we'll also understand if you simply leave the third group out. So here, I'm going to select Black, White, and Hispanic. Afterwards, you have a Your Choice group. We've given you many different student characteristics to fill out throughout the spreadsheet: gender, race, ethnicity, Pell status, veteran status, first generation status, enrollment intensity, student parent status, but there may be a characteristic of interest to your college that we still have not explicitly named, maybe traditional age student. So if I type traditional age student, or let's just say traditional aged, to keep it short, you will then see the characteristic fill out in the rest of the tabs with the groups traditional aged and not traditional aged. As I've shown here, the template will populate the name of the converse group, which will always be not plus whatever you typed in the box. So definitely use a binary dichotomous characteristic. Now, if you're filling out the Leader College of Distinction or the Leah Meyer Austin Award, one final decision to make before you start filling out data tabs is the earned baccalaureate denominator. You have your choice of all students in cohort or transfer students only. This is a choice that only ties to the metric representing the percentage of students who have earned a baccalaureate degree within 6 years of beginning in a cohort at your college. As is the case with FTEIC versus new students, all new students, ATD has no real preference as to which one you choose. It's up to you. The difference is that all students will keep everyone in the cohort in your denominator, including students who never transferred to a four-year institution after leaving your college. Transfer students only will give you a smaller denominator, as it will only account for students who started in your college in a particular cohort and then transferred at some point to a four-year institution. Both are acceptable ways of calculating the metric. So once again, it just comes down to preference. But here I'm going to select transfer students only. This last section, selected metrics for gap narrowing, is something to fill out at the end. Once you've filled out all your performance metrics, you should identify the metrics and the student characteristics on which you've narrowed an achievement gap between groups. Filling out these dropdowns will make it clear to the ATD reviewers the metrics you're prioritizing as rationale for being eligible for the award. Now, if you're filling out for standard leader college, you will see this section, but you'll only have one of these student characteristic groups to cite, not 4 combinations. After you've made some initial decisions, but before you move to data tabs, I would like to show you this definitions tab, which is new for this year. We used to distribute definitions throughout different tabs. We still do, but that didn't always leave much space for extra details. Here, you'll find discretely defined descriptions of numerators and denominators for the different metrics. Please review this tab carefully before proceeding to the data tabs, and certainly refer back to it if you're unsure of something as you go along. Some of the denominators are a little nuanced in who they include or exclude, specifically in gateway course completion. If the definitions tab still doesn't answer your question, please feel free to reach out to ATD for any clarifications. Before I move forward to the data tabs, I want to remind you that ATD expects that colleges fill out all metrics on all tabs, even if the outcomes don't show increased student achievement. We understand there may be a metric or two for which you don't have data, like student parent status, and likewise, if you don't have an optional metric of interest, you don't have to fill that out either. The idea is to fill out as much of the spreadsheet as possible, as having this information in one place is helpful for tracking trends or having discussions with your ATD team about progress on different student success metrics. So here is the first data tab, Gateway Courses. You'll notice on this and on all the other data tabs that your institution name and cohort type are automatically filled out based upon what you entered in the Intro tab. Also, as I scroll down, you'll notice that the optional group of interest is also filled out, as well as your race ethnicity groups. You'll notice that the overall definition of the metric at the top, as well as some more detailed descriptions at the side. Gateway course completion is the longest data tab because it's essentially 3 metrics in one: math only, English only, and math and English gateway course completion. So first here are the denominators, and then we have math only, English only, and math and English completion. As such, in terms of metric counts for the number of metrics on which you show growth, you can have growth in math only and growth in English only, and that will still only count as one metric. So keep that in mind. The layout of this tab is otherwise what you'll find on all the other tabs. At the top, you have denominators, counts of students in the cohort for these particular cohort years as per your selected consistent cohort definition. Enter the counts in the green cells. Scroll down a little further, you'll have an opportunity to enter counts of students for each of the numerators, again in the green cells. I'll fill in a few numbers here to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go to the top, and let's say we didn't change much. We have 500 in each of these. and that breaks out into 225, 275. And this also did not change much. And in my numerators, I'll fill out some numerators for math only. 300, 350, 325, 360. Here we have 75, 150, 100, 125, 125, 100. These are not realistic numbers, but they add up. All the differences in the percentages will automatically calculate for you. Now, if you accidentally type in a numerator that's completely impossible, the percentage will be shown in red as a flag to perhaps review your work. So let's say I accidentally fat fingered this. Oops, that's 333%. We're going to bring this back to 75. Now, the gaps are automatically calculated for you in terms of the percentage point difference between groups. You'll also get the 1 year, the first column here is the 1 year, and the 3-year percentage change at the far right-hand side. So all of the math that is applicable here gets done. Notably, if you find the need to print something out, I've set up this sheet so that it won't print on 18 pages. It'll print on anywhere between 1 and 3 pages, depending on how long the sheet is. Most will print on 1. This one will print on 3 because it's a little bigger. Now, once you understand how one tab works, you'll understand how the other tabs work. Moving along, we have fall-to-fall persistence, which, as you'll note, is much shorter than the gateway courses. Also pay very close attention to the cohort years up top. We understand that some metrics depend on data that first comes available in the current fall semester. Gateway courses only need to reflect completion through summer, but fall-to-fall persistence depends on a semester that's just now starting, or maybe in your case hasn't even started yet. So we've made a point to not have you enter data that you likely haven't yet gathered. That's why you'll notice that the cohort years are shifted back a year for persistence. So gateway courses was fall of 2017 through fall of 2020. Fall-to-fall persistence is fall of 2016 through fall of 2019. Credits attempted, the last of the Group A metrics, if you're going for Leader College of Distinction or Leah Meyer Austin Award, utilizes the same cohorts as the gateway courses, but the numbers here should look much bigger, as they're designed to reflect number of credits as opposed to number of students. Another note, it might be a little different as well because gateway courses, you will see this in definitions. Gateway courses refers to any student who requires a gateway course for their program. The rest of these tabs are just for any student who's going for a credential. Again, that's all reflecting definitions. Read those closely. But to recap here, you'll be filling out all the tabs, but in terms of selecting metrics on which to show growth, you'll be picking 2 of the 3 metrics you've just seen if you're going for Leader College Distinction or Leah Meyer Austin Award. If you're going for Standard Leader College, then you're picking 2 of any of the tabs here. But in Leader College Distinction and Leah Meyer Austin Award, it's pick 2 from Group A, 1 from Group B. So moving on to 4-year completion, this is the first Group B metric. And notice that these cohorts are a bit older than you saw with the Group A metrics. Now, in order to get 4-year completion, you need students to have been enrolled for 4 years, which is why the cohorts start back in 2013. And the final metric here, which is only present if you're filling out for Leader College of Distinction or Leah Meyer Austin Award, is transfer and earning a baccalaureate within 6 years. Similarly, these cohorts get even older as you need 6 years to elapse before getting your metric. Make sure to remember which denominator you chose, either the whole cohort or only the students in the cohort who transferred. Again, you're reminded of your selection up top. Both definitions are used by different groups as acceptable. ATD doesn't have a strong preference for either. Now, finally, you'll notice this final tab, the reviewer summary. You don't need to do anything with this tab, but by the time you're done filling in your data, you'll notice the cells will be populated. We've already started here with Gateway Math with these percentages. This tab is what the data reviewers at ATD will be going through to look consistently at your data at a glance. Keep in mind that, of course, they're going to look at the details in the other tabs as well. This is a new feature we added last year to ensure that everyone who's reviewing is looking at the data in a consistent fashion. However, it could be helpful to you as a review tab as well to see your stronger and weaker trends in one place. But in terms of met requirement, trend note, that's for ATD use, which is noted up at the top here. Now, going back to the intro tab, you may remember that there's some info to fill out at the end. We know there's a lot of metrics and a lot of student characteristics, especially that you're filling out most or all of this workbook. You'll need to show gap improvements on 2 metrics and 2 different student characteristics. Once you've filled out your data, take a look through and determine where your strongest gap closings are, particularly ones that relate to specific actions you've made in your student success agenda. Then use the drop downs here at the bottom to state the areas in which you feel you've made those strongest improvements. You should see at least 2 different metrics and 2 different characteristics represented when you're done. And as the note mentions, 2 different ethnicity group combinations, in this case, does represent 2 different student group combinations. So you have that option. So you'll notice here, let's say you have gateway courses and you have fall to fall persistence, and gateway courses, fall to fall persistence. But you'll notice here, ethnicity, you have Black versus white, white versus Hispanic, Black versus Hispanic, that will auto-populate with the ethnicity categories that you've selected. So here, let's say we did gateway courses on Pell. We did fall to fall persistence on gender. We did ethnicity, Black versus white. And we did here on Pell. So you'll notice there are 4 different combinations. So you have 2 different metrics and you have at least 2 different student characteristic types. That would be an example of something that you could go ahead and say, yes, I met the minimum requirements in terms of numbers of different gaps that are met. It'll also signal to the reviewers at ATD that this is what you're focused in on and most interested. Of course, ATD will still review all the gaps, most likely, but we're going to first narrow in on these particular items that you've selected. Again, if you're filling out for standard leader college, you'll just have a single one of these metric and characteristic combos, so there's not too much for you to do here. This concludes the walkthrough of the Leader College of Distinction, and Leah Meyer Austin Award data workbooks. If any questions arise during the process, please do not hesitate to reach out to an ATD staff member. And thanks again for all that you do for your students.